The morning sun cast long shadows across the International Space Station as Tom Walker performed his routine maintenance check. The veteran astronaut floated gracefully outside the station, his practiced hands working on the solar panel connections. 20 years of space exploration hadn't prepared him for what happened next. A flash of light caught his attention. At first, he thought it was just sunlight reflecting off the station's metal surface. Then he saw it. A massive ship, easily 10 times the size of the ISS, appearing seemingly out of nowhere about 2 kilometers away. "Control, are you seeing this?" Tom's voice remained surprisingly steady despite his racing heart. "Affirmative, Tom. Return to the airlock immediately." Before he could respond, a soft blue light enveloped him. Tom felt a gentle tingling sensation throughout his body, and suddenly he found himself standing in a brightly lit room. 3 beings stood before him. Tall, elegant creatures with silvery skin and flowing robes. "Welcome, human representative," the tallest one spoke in perfect English. "We are the Galactic Council's first contact team." Within hours, the news spread across Earth like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond, military forces went on high alert, and social media exploded with theories and speculation. The Council representatives requested a formal meeting with Earth's leaders, which was quickly arranged at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Ambassador James Miller, a seasoned diplomat with gray hair and steady hands, led the human delegation. As he sat across from the alien representatives in the UN chamber, he couldn't help but notice their subtle expressions of distaste when they looked at the human security details standard-issue firearms. "Your species shows promise," announced High Counselor Reed, his silvery skin shimming under the chamber lights. "However, we have concerns about your military technology, particularly your reliance on primitive projectile weapons." Miller maintained his diplomatic smile. "Our firearms have served us well throughout our history." A shorter alien, who introduced himself as Technical Advisor Grant, let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "You propel small pieces of metal with chemical explosions. It's barely more advanced than throwing rocks." The council members displayed their own weapons, sleek devices that fired bolts of pure energy. They demonstrated their shield technology, which could stop their energy weapons with ease. The human delegates watched in amazement as colorful beams of light were absorbed harmlessly by invisible barriers. "Now," Grant said, pointing at a human guard's rifle, "show us what your guns can do." With proper safety protocols in place, the security team demonstrated a standard-issue rifle on a target. The sharp crack of the gunshot made several council members jump, but they quickly composed themselves and laughed. "Such crude devices," Reed shook his head. "The noise alone is primitive. How do you even aim with such recoil? And the need for physical ammunition seems terribly inefficient." Miller noticed something interesting during their demonstration. While the aliens mocked the human weapons, their eyes told a different story. There was curiosity there, and perhaps a hint of concern about something they didn't fully understand. "The Council has decided," Reed announced at the end of the meeting. "Before we can consider Earth for membership, you must prove your species' worth. We propose a military exercise. Your forces against a small Council peacekeeping unit. This will help us assess your capabilities." As the meeting concluded, Miller caught Technical Advisor Grant whispering to another Council member, "This will be quick. Their weapons are practically antiques compared to ours." Miller exchanged glances with General Hayes, his military advisor. They both recognized the condescension in the alien's tone, but they also saw an opportunity. The Council's overconfidence might just be the advantage Earth needed. As the alien delegation departed, Miller turned to Hayes and spoke quietly. "They're so focused on how primitive our weapons are, they're not asking the right questions." Hayes nodded, a slight smile playing on his lips. "They never asked what happens when our primitive bullets hit their energy shields, did they?" Sometimes, Miller thought, Being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all. The Council's testing grounds were located on a massive space station orbiting Jupiter. General Hayes stood with Ambassador Miller, watching as alien technicians set up their demonstration range. The huge chamber could easily fit 3 football fields, with one end dedicated to targets and the other containing observation seats for the Council members. "Let's see these weapons you're so proud of," Technical Advisor Grant said, his silver skin reflecting the bright overhead lights. "Show us your best." Hayes nodded to his team. Master Sergeant Ryan Thompson stepped forward, carrying an array of human weapons. He started with a standard military rifle, hitting targets with precise accuracy. The Council members watched with bored expressions. "Primitive targeting systems," one whispered to another. Thompson moved on to demonstrate a heavy machine gun, then a sniper rifle, and finally some experimental railgun prototypes. Each demonstration was met with poorly hidden yawns from the alien audience. "Enough," High Counselor Reed raised his hand. "Now let us show you real weapons." A tall alien soldier stepped forward, holding what looked like a silver tube with glowing blue lines. Without warning, he fired at a target. A bright beam of energy shot out, completely vaporizing the metal target. The chamber filled with impressed murmurs from the Council members. "That," Grant said proudly, "is a basic Council infantry weapon. Watch this." He pressed a button on his wrist device. A shimmering field appeared around another target. The alien soldier fired again, but this time the energy beams splashed harmlessly against the shield. "Our shield technology makes energy weapons useless against protected targets," Grant explained. "We've had no major wars in over 500 years because our defenses are perfect." Hayes exchanged a meaningful look with Thompson. They had both noticed something crucial. The aliens were only demonstrating energy weapons against energy shields. "Now," Reed announced, "we will hold a combat exercise in 3 Earth days. Your forces against our peacekeeping unit. If you prove yourselves capable, we might consider your application to join the Council." As the aliens discussed the exercise terms, Miller pulled Hayes aside. "Did you see it?" the ambassador whispered. "Every single demonstration," Hayes replied quietly. "They only used energy weapons. Not once did they test their shields against physical objects. Think they've never considered it. 500 years of peace through perfect defense." Hayes shook his head. "They've probably forgotten that other types of weapons exist." Later that day, in a secure room, Hayes met with his technical team. Dr. Laura Peters, their lead weapons researcher, spread out her data on a holographic display. "Their shields work by dispersing energy," she explained. "But energy dispersion won't do anything against solid objects. It's like trying to stop a bullet with a lightning rod." "Can we exploit this?" Hayes asked. Peters smiled. "Better. We can modify our ammunition to be completely non-reactive to their scanning systems. They won't even see it coming." Thompson, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "They're so sure of their technology, they've stopped thinking about basic physics. A simple bullet might be more effective than their fancy energy beams." Hayes looked at the gathered team. "We have 3 days. I want every soldier equipped with modified ammunition. And most importantly, no one talks about this outside this room. Let them keep thinking we're primitive." As the meeting ended, Peters stopped Hayes. "General, there's one more thing. Their ships, their equipment, everything they've shown us. It's all designed to defend against energy weapons. If our theory is right, their entire civilization might be vulnerable to 20th century technology." Hayes finished her thought. "Keep working on it. And remember, let them keep laughing at our guns." The next 3 days were a blur of activity. While the Council members continued to make jokes about human weapons, Earth's forces prepared in secret. Ammunition was modified, tactics were adjusted, and soldiers were briefed on the plan. On the morning of the exercise, as Hayes watched his troops prepare, Miller stood beside him. "They're still making jokes about us using gunpowder," the ambassador said. Hayes checked his modified sidearm. Let them laugh. They won't be laughing for long. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a secret military facility, Dr. Laura Peters worked through another sleepless night. Hundreds of bullets lay scattered across her lab bench, each one modified with a special coating that made them invisible to alien scanners. Another test, Dr. Peters asked Technical Sergeant Mike Brown, who had been helping her run experiments for the past 48 hours. Last one for this batch, she replied, loading a bullet into the testing chamber. On her screen, alien sensor data scrolled past, copied from their public demonstrations. The bullet fired, and the sensors showed nothing. Perfect invisibility. They'll never see them coming, Brown said with a smile. Above ground, in military bases across the world, soldiers trained with their modified weapons. The Council had allowed them to bring their primitive firearms to the exercise, probably as a gesture of pity. They had no idea that each gun now carried specially designed ammunition. Master Sergeant Thompson watched his unit run through their exercises. "Remember," he called out, "they expect us to fight like we're from the Stone Age. Let's not disappoint them until it's too late." The soldiers practiced new tactics. Instead of taking cover from energy weapons, they learned to move through them, their new armor designed to scatter the energy harmlessly. The aliens' overconfidence had given humanity access to their technical specifications, and Earth's engineers had worked miracles with the information. Meanwhile, at the United Nations, Ambassador Miller sat through another condescending meeting with the Council representatives. "We've prepared a special viewing area," Technical Advisor Grant said, barely hiding his amusement, "so you can watch your troops' honorable defeat in comfort." "That's very thoughtful of you," Miller replied diplomatically, while thinking about the reports from Dr. Peters' lab. High Counselor Reed joined them, holding what looked like a glowing tablet. "We've analyzed your weapon designs again. Truly fascinating, in a primitive way. They belong in a museum of ancient warfare. Perhaps," Miller said carefully, "you'd like to inspect them one more time before the exercise." "No need." Reed waved his hand dismissively. "Our sensors tell us everything we need to know about your technology level." That evening, in General Hayes' command center, the final preparations were underway. Dr. Peters arrived with her report. "All units are equipped with the modified ammunition," she announced. "We've also adapted their scanning technology. Look at this." She activated a display showing two images. The left shows how they see our bullets, which is not at all. The right shows what actually happens when our rounds hit their shields. The simulation played, showing the bullet passing straight through an energy shield as if it wasn't there. "Their entire defensive doctrine," Hayes said, studying the display, "is based on stopping energy weapons. They never considered something as simple as a physical projectile. 500 years of peace made them forget the basics of physics," Peters added. "Their shields are amazing at stopping energy, but they might as well be trying to stop a bullet with a soap bubble." Thompson entered the room with the latest intelligence. "Sir, the Council forces are setting up their positions. They're not even bothering to camouflage their shield generators." "Why would they?" Hayes smiled grimly. "They think they're invincible." The next morning, as Earth's forces prepared to board their transports to the exercise location, Hayes gathered his commanders for a final briefing. "Remember," he said, looking at each face in turn, "let them think we're doing this the old way. Let them see what they expect to see, until the moment we show them what primitive really means." Dr. Peters handed out the last batches of modified ammunition. "One more thing," she said. "Their ships use the same shield technology. If this works—" "One step at a time," Dr. Hayes interrupted gently. "Let's win this exercise first. Then we can worry about revolutionizing galactic warfare." As the troops boarded their ships, Miller arrived to wish them luck. "The Council members are taking bets on how quickly you'll surrender," he told Hayes. The general checked his modified sidearm one last time. "Then I guess we're about to spoil their betting pool." Above them, the morning sun glinted off the transport ships. In less than 24 hours, The Council would learn a valuable lesson about underestimating primitive weapons. Sometimes, the old ways were the best ways, especially when your enemy had forgotten they existed. The neutral moon's surface stretched out like a gray ocean under the starlit sky. Human transport ships landed quietly at their designated starting position, kicking up clouds of moon dust. Inside the command bunker, General Hayes watched as his troops took their positions. "Look at them," Technical Advisor Grant said from the observation deck, pointing at the human soldiers, still using physical barriers for cover. How quaint. The Council's forces had set up their position with casual confidence. Their shield generators hummed quietly, creating beautiful, shimmering domes of energy around their positions. Their troops wore sleek armor that gleamed under the stars, each carrying an advanced energy rifle. "The betting pool is closed," High Counselor Reed announced to the other council members. "Most bets suggest the humans will surrender within 10 minutes. This brought amused chuckles from the gathered aliens. Ambassador Miller sat quietly in the observation room, watching the tactical displays. The Council had provided these screens to let the humans learn from their defeat. Instead, they would serve to record history. "Exercise begins in 5 minutes," announced the automated system. In their positions, Master Sergeant Thompson addressed his unit. "Remember your training. Let them think they have the upper hand. Wait for the signal." Dr. Peters stood beside Hayes in the command center, monitoring her instruments. "Their shields are at full power. They've configured them specifically to stop energy weapons." "And our new ammunition?" Hayes asked quietly. "Completely invisible to their sensors. They don't even know it exists." The countdown reached 1 minute. On the battlefield, human soldiers checked their weapons one last time. Each magazine was loaded with the special bullets, regular-looking rounds that would pass right through energy shields as if they weren't there. "Exercise begins in 30 seconds. The Council forces moved forward with practiced precision, their energy rifles humming with power. They advanced in perfect formation, completely confident in their shield technology. 10 seconds. Thompson whispered into his radio. "Hold your fire until they're fully committed. Exercise begins now." The Council forces moved forward immediately, firing their energy weapons. Beautiful beams of light crossed the battlefield, splashing harmlessly against the physical barriers the humans hid behind. The alien commanders smiled, expecting the humans to realize the hopelessness of their situation. "Look how they hide," Grant laughed. "Their primitive instincts at work." Then Hayes gave the order everyone had been waiting for. "Execute Pattern Charlie." The human forces moved with sudden, coordinated precision. Instead of staying in cover, they spread out in a wide formation. The Council commanders frowned, not understanding this strange tactic. "What are they doing?" Reed asked, his amusement turning to confusion. The human soldiers raised their primitive weapons. The Council commanders actually laughed at this seemingly futile gesture. Their shields were impenetrable, or so they thought. "Fire," ordered Thompson. The sharp crack of gunfire echoed across the moon's surface. The Council members waited to see their shields light up, deflecting the primitive projectiles. Instead, they watched in horror as their frontline troops fell. The bullets passed through their advanced shields as if they weren't even there, striking their targets with devastating effect. The training rounds were non-lethal, but the effect was clear. In a real battle, the Council forces would have been decimated. "Impossible," Grant shouted, staring at his readings. "Our sensors don't show any weapons fire." "That's because you never bothered to look for them," Dr. Peters said quietly. The Council forces fell into chaos. Their entire strategy relied on their shields, and now those shields might as well have been made of smoke. They tried to regroup, to adjust their shield frequencies, but nothing worked. In less than 5 minutes, the exercise was effectively over. The Council forces were marked as completely eliminated, while the human forces had barely taken any hits. In the observation room, silence replaced the earlier laughter. Ambassador Miller finally spoke up. "I believe," he said calmly, "this would be a good time to discuss Earth's membership in the Council. and perhaps a broader conversation about military doctrine. Hayes looked at the battlefield displays with quiet satisfaction. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones, especially against an enemy who had grown too proud to remember the basics. On the field, Thompson keyed his radio. All units report. Exercise complete. Primitive weapons effective. The observation room had fallen completely silent. High Counselor Reed stared at the battlefield displays. His silver skin had turned almost gray with shock. Technical Advisor Grant frantically worked at his control panel, trying to understand what had just happened. "Run the simulation again," Reed commanded, his voice shaking slightly. The holographic display replayed the exercise. Once again, they watched as the human bullets passed straight through their supposedly impenetrable shields, marking each target as eliminated. The council members winced every time they saw their troops fall. "This is impossible," Grant muttered, reviewing the sensor data. "Our shields are perfect. They stop every known weapon in the galaxy." "Every known energy weapon," Dr. Peters corrected him, stepping forward. "But you never tested them against simple physical projectiles, did you?" The council members turned to look at her. Ambassador Miller nodded, giving her permission to explain. "Your shields," she continued, "are amazing at dispersing energy, but they do nothing against solid objects. It's like using an electrical insulator to stop a throwing stone." General Hayes joined them, holding one of the modified bullets. "We noticed during your demonstrations that you only ever tested energy weapons against your shields. 500 years of peace made you forget about simpler solutions." Grant grabbed the bullet, scanning it with his devices. "But our sensors should have detected these. We coated them with materials that don't reflect your scanning frequencies," Dr. Peters explained. "To your sensors, they might as well be invisible." On the battlefield, Master Sergeant Thompson supervised as his troops helped the shocked council forces up from their positions. The training rounds had only marked their targets with bright paint, but the message was clear. In a real fight, the entire council force would have been wiped out. "Would you like to examine one of our primitive weapons?" Thompson offered to a council commander, trying not to smile too much. The alien commander took the rifle with trembling hands. "All this time," he said quietly, "we thought we were invincible." Back in the observation room, Reed had finally found his voice. "This changes everything. Our entire defense strategy, our ship designs, our military doctrine. It's all based on stopping energy weapons." "And that's not the worst part," Grant added, looking up from his analysis. "If their projectile weapons can do this to our infantry shields, they could do the same to your ship shields." Hayes finished for him. "Every vessel in your fleet has the same vulnerability." The implications hit the council members like a physical blow. Their mighty warships, their orbital platforms, their planetary defenses, all could be defeated by what they had dismissed as primitive technology. Ambassador Miller stepped forward. "The Council has always prided itself on learning from new members, hasn't it? Perhaps this is an opportunity." Reed nodded slowly. Yes, it is." He turned to Hayes. "General, we would be very interested in learning more about your—" "What did we call them?" "Primitive weapons." "Of course," Hayes replied diplomatically. "And perhaps we could learn about your energy weapons in return. After all, the best defense is usually a combination of technologies." Dr. Peters was already drawing diagrams, showing interested council scientists how simple physics had defeated their advanced shields. "The solution," she explained, "isn't to abandon energy shields, but to develop new ones that can stop both types of weapons." Thompson reported in from the field. "Sir, the council forces are requesting a demonstration of our firearms. They seem very interested in learning proper shooting techniques." As the day continued, the mood shifted from shock to curiosity. Council members who had laughed at human weapons now asked detailed questions about ballistics and projectile design. Scientists from both sides began discussing hybrid defense systems. Miller watched it all with satisfaction. "It's amazing," he said to Hayes, "how quickly mockery can turn to respect." That's the thing about humanity, Hayes replied, watching Council troops learning to handle Earth rifles. We may not have the most advanced technology, but we never stop looking for solutions. Sometimes the old ways work best, especially when everyone else has forgotten about them. In the distance, the sun was setting behind the moon's horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield where history had just been made. The galaxy would never be quite the same again. 1 week after the exercise, the Council's main scientific facility on Europa buzzed with activity. In a large laboratory filled with both human and alien equipment, Dr. Peters watched as Council scientists fired various projectiles at their shield systems. "Try it again," she suggested, but this time with the modified shield frequency. The alien scientists adjusted their equipment. A test bullet fired across the room, and this time, the shield flickered and partially deflected it. Progress. Technical Advisor Grant nodded, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine interest. But we're still far from a complete solution. In another part of the facility, Master Sergeant Thompson worked with Council military trainers, teaching them about ballistic weapons. The aliens had proven to be quick learners, their initial dismissal of primitive technology replaced by eager curiosity. "Remember," Thompson explained, demonstrating proper rifle handling, "these weapons don't have auto-targeting. You have to account for gravity, wind, and distance yourself." "Like your ancient hunters," one alien trainer said thoughtfully. "Perhaps we've relied too much on technology and forgotten basic skills." Meanwhile, in the Council's main chamber on Europa, Ambassador Miller and General Hayes presented their findings to the full Council Assembly. The massive room was packed with representatives from hundreds of alien species, all paying close attention to the humans they had recently mocked. The exercise revealed a critical flaw in our defensive doctrine, High Counselor Reed announced to the Assembly. One that could have proven devastating if discovered by a hostile force. Hayes stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "Our analysis shows that every major Council military installation, every ship, and every defensive platform has the same vulnerability." The display showed simulations of how simple projectile weapons could bypass the most advanced Council shields. The assembly chamber filled with worried murmurs. "But there's good news," Miller added quickly. "Together, we've already made progress on developing new defense systems." "Dr. Peters, would you explain?" Dr. Peters took the stage, her earlier nervousness around aliens completely gone. "The solution isn't to abandon energy shields," she explained, showing new technical diagrams. "It's to combine our technologies. We're developing hybrid shields that can stop both energy and physical attacks." The Council scientists displayed their own findings. "Human projectile weapons have other advantages we overlooked," one alien scientist admitted. "They can't be detected by energy scanners, they don't require power cells, and they're incredibly reliable." In the back of the chamber, Thompson gave a demonstration of Earth's different firearms to interested Council members. The same weapons they had laughed at a week ago now drew serious attention and questions. "These weapons have served us for hundreds of years," he explained. "Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution." Grant, who had been analyzing the combat data, presented his findings next. "We've discovered that human military doctrine is remarkably adaptable. They never stop developing new tactics and technologies, even for their older weapons." The Council became complacent. Reed admitted to the Assembly. "We assumed our energy weapons and shields were the peak of military technology. We forgot that there's always room for improvement, always another way to solve a problem." As the presentation continued, Miller noticed something interesting. The Council members who had been the loudest in mocking human weapons were now the most enthusiastic about learning from Earth's military experience. Hayes met with the Council's military command later that day. "We're proposing a joint training program," he suggested. "Your troops learn our weapons and tactics. Our troops learn your energy weapons. We make each other stronger." "Agreed," the alien commander replied instantly. "And we need to redesign our ships immediately. One lucky pirate with a mass driver could devastate our fleet right now." Dr. Peters worked late into the night with her alien counterparts, designing new defensive systems. The beauty of it, she explained, drawing on a digital board, is that we can use the principles of both technologies together. Energy shields can be modified to create physical barriers as well. As the facility's artificial day cycle dimmed to evening, Miller found Hayes looking out a viewport at Jupiter's massive form. "Quite a week," Miller said, "from laughingstock to respected allies." Hayes nodded. Sometimes the best teacher is a good dose of humility, especially when it's delivered by a primitive bullet. 1 month after the exercise that changed galactic military doctrine, Earth's first official council embassy opened in Geneva. Ambassador Miller stood at the podium, addressing a mixed crowd of humans and aliens. "Today marks not just Earth's acceptance into the Galactic Council," he announced, "but the beginning of a new era of cooperation." In the audience, General Hayes sat next to High Counselor Reed, both wearing ceremonial uniforms. The sight of their different military decorations, side by side, symbolized how much had changed. "Remember when we thought your weapons belonged in a museum?" Reed whispered to Hayes. "Now we're building museums to showcase the day humanity proved us wrong." Above the embassy, a joint human-alien honor guard demonstrated their new capabilities. Council troops carried modified rifles alongside their energy weapons, while human soldiers wielded new hybrid weapons that combined ballistic and energy technology. Technical advisor Grant, who had once laughed at human weapons, now served as the head of the Council's new Combined Arms Division. He stood proudly as his troops showed perfect form, with both traditional firearms and energy weapons. "Each weapon has its purpose," he explained to the gathered media. "Energy weapons for their precision, ballistic weapons for their reliability. Together, they make us stronger than either alone." In orbit, Dr. Peters supervised the installation of new hybrid shield systems on Council ships. The protective barriers now shimmered with a double layer, one for energy weapons, one for physical projectiles. "The new shields are twice as effective," she explained to a group of alien engineers. "And they actually use less power than the old ones. Sometimes simpler is better." Master Sergeant Thompson, now serving as chief instructor at the Council's first Combined Warfare Academy, watched as alien cadets practiced with both types of weapons. "Aim with your eyes, not your targeting computer," he called out as an alien trainee successfully hit a distant target with a standard rifle. "Trust your instincts as much as your technology." In the Council's main chamber, Reed addressed the full assembly. "1 month ago, we thought we were teaching humanity. Instead, they taught us the danger of overconfidence and the value of maintaining diverse capabilities." The assembly chamber's screen showed military units across the galaxy adopting the new doctrine. Ships were being retrofitted, troops retrained, and defensive systems upgraded. What had started as an embarrassing revelation had turned into a renaissance of military technology. Miller walked through the embassy's new museum wing, stopping at a display case. Inside lay the first bullet that had passed through a Council shield during the exercise. The plaque beneath it read, "Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best solutions." Hayes joined him, looking at the display. "Hard to believe it was just a month ago they were laughing at us. Now they're naming weapon systems after Earth cities," Miller chuckled. "I heard they're calling their new hybrid cannon the Geneva configuration." In the embassy's training grounds, human and alien children watched demonstration matches together. They cheered as soldiers showed how different weapons and tactics could work together, creating strategies that would have been impossible with either technology alone. Dr. Peters presented her latest research to a mixed team of scientists. By combining ballistic principles with energy projection, she explained, "We've created weapons that have the best of both worlds. And this is just the beginning." Grant, who had overseen the integration of Earth's military knowledge into Council doctrine, submitted his final report. "The introduction of human military science has not just filled a critical gap in our defenses. It has reminded us that progress doesn't always mean abandoning the old ways. Sometimes it means remembering why they worked in the first place." As the day drew to a close, Miller and Hayes stood on the embassy's balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "You know what the best part is?" Miller said, nodding toward a group of human and alien soldiers chatting together nearby. "They're already talking about what else they can learn from each other." Hayes smiled. "That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not just our old weapons, but our willingness to keep learning, keep adapting." Below them, in the embassy courtyard, a council honor guard raised both the Earth and Council flags together. The sound of a traditional gun salute mixed with the hum of energy rifles, a perfect symbol of how far they had all come. The galaxy had changed forever, not because of advanced technology, but because of a simple bullet and the willingness to learn from the past.